Trends, Friends, and Fatal Ends was created to raise awareness of potential hazards facing the youth in our community. This program includes images of a graphic nature which may not be suitable for younger viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to Insights with Dr. C. My name is Dr. Douglas Carpenter. I and my wife, Mary Carpenter, own Insight Counseling Services in Rochester, Michigan. This is part 5 and our last episode of a series that we've been talking about called Trends, Friends, and Fatal Ends. It's went over a host of topics, beginning with many risks that teens take in relation to what's called challenges that we've heard in the news, we've found over the internet, teens have talked a lot about at school. So there's been a lot of publicity about these challenges. We spent some time talking about that, and then we moved into the areas of drugs, alcohol. The last portion of this slide is going to be talking about some of the newer drugs that are out there that are not real popular, that are just starting to come out. Some of the latest trends, these drugs don't show up on drug screens, so that makes it very difficult, but they're extremely dangerous drugs. So we're going to turn to the slides now, and so we can take a look at some of these. This is not so new or common, but they're finding new uses for them. Some of the plants that we have and people may have in their yard, like Jimson weed, salvia, they'll take the seeds out of these plants and take them or eat them in high amounts. And when done so in Jimson weed, it causes an LSD or a psychedelic type effect, but it's extremely dangerous and can leave symptoms up to several hours after a person has ingested them. Salvia is the most natural occurring hallucinogenic, and it's a plant, but it too causes many, many problems. I've had people tell me in my office that they've taken salvia at different times and then laid on the ground completely numb, where they were aware of everything, but they had no control over their body and their movements and body functions for up to 30 minutes, an hour at a time. So it's very scary stuff. Morning glory seeds, very similar to Jimson weed. Nutmeg can have effects similar to mescaline, but it has to be taken in very high quantities, which again is very harmful to your body and causes you to become very sick and very nauseated for many hours. So engaging in these activities may be fun in the moment, but it can lead to real medical emergencies. And plus, one thing that happens is individuals will ingest the seeds and then not feel anything really happening, so they'll then ingest more. But then eventually that all kicks in at a similar time frame, and then the individual experiences a severe high or impact from that, and then that can lead to medical emergencies. Also, angel trumpets or moonflowers. I have some pictures of some of these here in the corners. So just be aware that these seeds can be used and they're extremely harmful. So again, our session today had a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. I too want to encourage you to be careful about what you're allowing your children to view of today's session. I don't want them to have any ideas from this. If you're a young person and you are watching, please don't take any of these ideas, because the reason that I'm telling you about these things is the dangers that are involved with them. Not that you should do them or try them or it's safe. It's not safe. It's extremely, extremely dangerous. All right. Kratom. This is kind of something new. For a couple of years, I did this presentation around various communities. I spoke about Kratom, but most people had not heard of it. People weren't aware of it. It wasn't really out. However, now the police have reported that it is in Michigan. It has been found here. Kratom is an herbal product from a plant. It's a tropical evergreen tree that's in the coffee family. It's found in Southeast Asia. It comes in tablets or capsules, Like I said, police have found it in Michigan. It also can go under other names such as Cosmic, Kratom, Red, Martian, Norc Zero, and it gives you an opiate-like effect. And are basically your painkillers, or heroin, morphine, some of those types of drugs. Those are the effects. As you can see, this is what the plant looks like. Again, this is a very dangerous plant to be consumed. And you can have many ill effects from it, but be aware if you see this package and you see the word kratom, that it is something to be alarmed about and you don't want your children involved with. Another big problem right now in our society is the use of prescription drugs. On many college campuses, stimulants are a problem. Adderall is being abused by college students, so it will give them, they'll take it to have the energy to stay up late and study, or to study for hours on end and then run in and take a test, but then they end up becoming addicted to it. And then the withdrawals from of Adderall can be also severe, where an individual can have a lot of anger and rage. So these are dangerous. There's a really good book out. I think it's an ebook, and it's from Philip Zimbardo, Dr. Philip Zimbardo. He's one of the greatest social psychologists that exists and is still alive right now. He's done many of the studies that if you take a social psychology class, you'll read about his experiments in the book. He's very famous. He has written a book called The Demise of Guys. In this book, he talks about the overuse of stimulants and Adderall and the effect that it's having on men and boys in our generation, and it's significant. So this is definitely something to be alarmed about or to watch out for. Stimulant drugs such as Ritalin and Adderall do have their place with people who struggle with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, ADHD. They do have their place, and they're beneficial drugs. However, if misused, that's when they become a problem. Benzodiazepines are a class of medication that treats anxiety. So Xanax, Valium, Ativan, Klonopin, they're really made to take on the short-term basis for people like who are having a spike in anxiety or a spike in panic. They'll take a benzodiazepine to help their system come back down and for them to feel calm. And Xanax is probably one of the most abusive substances that's out there, especially as it relates to prescription drugs. It's very has a high potency of addiction. And I personally think too many physicians hand out Xanax for various reasons, sleep and to control anxiety. And I'm not a real big fan of Xanax. Opiates, again, they're painkillers, Vicodin, Oxycontin, fentanyl. These are painkillers, and many young people are getting a hold of these medications and then buying them on the street, and then later finding that street drugs like heroin, tar heroin, some of these things might end up being cheaper. But then the risk of using those drugs continues to increase exponentially, and we're going to talk more about heroin here in a little bit. 1 in 14 say that they have used a drug that was not prescribed to them, and 1 in 5 before the age of 14. Naturally, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a physician, I'm a clinical psychologist, but I want to encourage you to not take medications that are not prescribed to you. You need to be careful about that. You need to follow the lead and the care of a doctor, and that doctor needs to prescribe you medication if you need it, and not to be taking other people's medications. So prescription drugs and drug use is a big problem in our society at this current time. Also, you might hear of something called pill parties or farming parties. This is extremely dangerous. It was happening on college campuses for a while, where individuals would show up at a party and they would have raided their medicine cabinet or raided someone else's medicine cabinet and just brought whatever pills they could find. They walk into the party, they dump them into this party bowl, and then various people will just pick up a handful of the drugs and then take them and then just kind of see what kind of effect they have from them. This is extremely dangerous. Would not encourage anybody to be involved in that kind of setting or party or behavior. So please stay away from that. Also, in the news recently, there's a new medication out called Zohydro ER. This is an extremely strong opiate to my understanding. Again, like I said, I'm not a medical doctor, but my understanding of it is that this is an opiate medication, a painkiller that is very strong and is really intended to be for someone who's been on painkillers for a long period of time where they're struggling with having those painkillers work, and this is stronger. There was a lot of fear and outcry when this medication first came out, concerned that people who were trying to abuse opiate medications may, if they got a hold of this and it was their first time using the substance, that it might be very easy to overdose. So that's something that you would want to know about. Also, I would not encourage you to use prescription drugs, especially opiates, recreationally because of the potential damage. Opiates have the risk of, especially if you take them in high enough volume, of shutting down your brainstem, so your heart rate, your breathing, all of those things continue to decrease, and then that can lead to death, coma, so severe medical emergencies. Here's just a neat slide that I wanted to portray about how damaging meth, heroin, alcohol, weed can be on a person and the way they look and the toll that it takes on them over time. So these drugs have a major impact on your overall physical health. I said that we would talk about heroin. Heroin is very much on the rise. In places like Flint, it has been known to be up about 41%. Actually, heroin has been put out as a national epidemic right now out of Washington. I'm sure the drug czar, I'm not even sure who that is off the top of my head, but it has been declared a national emergency because of the amount of overdoses and deaths that are occurring in relation to heroin, and mixing heroin with things with like alcohol or Xanax or fentanyl, which is a strong painkiller as well, leading to death. Heroin and crack are the biggest problems in Detroit. And like I said, it's been declared a national crisis. Also, tar heroin. This is cheaper and easier to get. It's really a bad form of heroin. It's very unpure. It has been said that Macaulay Culkin, the boy from Home Alone, had a heroin addiction or a tar heroin addiction. You can see the drastic pictures here from when he was an older adolescent to how he is an adult and the unhealthiness that appears. So tar heroin is any type of heroin. Tar heroin is very problematic too because of the impure form of heroin that it is. Just some other things that have been around for a while but you continue to want to watch out for is ice, glass, or crystal meth. Again, these things are very addictive and very problematic if you start taking them and it becomes a regular habit. So parents, I also had this picture here, is that if you find paraphernalia like this in your kid's room, these little glass tubes or little scales of some kind, or razor blades or wax paper, pay attention to what's in your kid's room. Should this be here? Or why would my kid have this out on his dresser or in his room? Make sure you're paying attention. If they have pill capsules that are not filled with anything, that's another point of concern, that some kind of substance is being put in that capsule. It's being put together and then potentially taken or distributed. All right. Molly. Molly is a substance, MDMA, that is fairly popular right now. So it used to be the pure form of MDMA. Now it's often just a mixture of synthetic chemicals that mimic MDMA. So it can be put into capsules. It can be made into these little pills that kind of look like Skittles or just Smarties or just some kind of colored, flavored little pill. These are very popular at raves, at concerts. There are actually sometimes booths set up where people can have their Molly tested to see what's in it before they take it. So you can buy two, have one tested, and then the other one you take, which just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me. That why would you put yourself in that kind of jeopardy to take them at all? So if you see that your kids are texting about someone named Molly, Molly is not a person, it is a drug. Please pay attention. Molly, MDMA, and it can also go by the terms ecstasy. So, or you might just see the word, an X here, ecstasy, on the end of it. So please be aware of this as well. Meow Meow, or mephedrone. Again, this is advertised as plant food. Mephedrone, it's a mix of MDMA and cocaine. This can be used by snorting it, eating it, made into pill form, smoking, or injecting. Just some of the common side effects or things that you'll see if a person has taken Meow Meow is grinding teeth. There's a sense of, when you're high on it, that other people's faces are melting, which can be very disturbing for someone. But it's also said to give good party vibes. However, it can also lead to violence. And here's an example of some of the extreme violence that these medications or these drugs can lead to. This British teen stabbed his mother, this is his mother, 11 times, and then after that cut off his own penis. So you can see how delusional some of these medications, these bath salts, some of these base powders that are plant food or things that are not made to be ingested can impact your mind, your body, your thinking, and your behavior and lead you to do very irrational things. I hope that this young man would never have done what he did if he wasn't under the influence of such a strong substance. So, and there are countless episodes like this one. This just happened to be one specifically that related to Meow Meow. I have personally worked on cases where teens have harmed their parents under the influence of substances that they were not sure what the substance was. So there are great dangers in taking these drugs that are mixed and they're chemical based. So please be aware of that. There's also something called BenzoFury. This is similar to MDMA. It's a research chemical. It's an amphetamine based. It lasts 2 to 10 hours and it has a strong connection to music, emotions, euphoria, and energy. So if you see packets like this laying around in your kids' rooms or you see it in their backpack, please do not just pass by it. Pay attention to what your kids are doing. Pay attention to their backpacks. Crocodile, this is from Russia. It's a form of desmorphin. The active ingredient is codeine or morphine, and it's mixed with a brew of household solvents and poisons such as paint thinner, hydrochloric acid, red phosphorus, scraped from the strike pads of matchboxes. So think about ingesting this. The result is a murky yellow liquid, and it mimics the effects of heroin, but only cost a fraction, and it can lead to heavy sedation. But the problem with this, and like I said, this is big in Russia, that when a person gets hooked on this, it eventually starts eating your flesh. So look at the wounds of it looks like this female, her legs from being hooked on Crocodile. Very dangerous, very scary. Here's a substance. This is gaining more popularity. This used to more just be in the South. We are seeing it more come toward the north at this point. It goes by a couple of different names. Flocka or gravel. It's a synthetic stimulant. It's a combination of rat poison, bath salts, and methamphetamine. It's a grainy, crystal-like powder or rocks, and it's more in southern states, but as I said, it's working its way north. There are videos on YouTube of some people engaged in taking Flocka and their behavior. Some of the ways that you use it is vaporizing it, snorting it, eating it, or smoking it. And the effects, listen to this, it can be murderous rage, paranoia, violence, and running around screaming. This was a girl that a group of boys were driving down the highway in Florida and allegedly looked over and saw this girl just running around screaming, and were concerned about her, and it was found out that she was on Flocka. So this is the kind of behavior this can result in. And the problem with some of this stuff is that it can be cheap, and so it's accessible to people with just a small amount of money, but can have extreme danger. So imagine that she was doing this out near a highway, how easy it would be for her to wander into the highway and then become a fatality from a car hitting her. This MXE is also a drug that is a research chemical, but it's a hallucinogenic and it causes dissociative. So a dissociative means that I kind of don't have awareness of my body or the space and time that I'm in, that I've separated from myself somehow. So it can lead to a dissociative or anesthetic effect, so kind of numbness. It's similar to ketamine or roofies, or what would be considered the date rape drug. It was originally used as an animal tranquilizer. Now, one thing that concerns me is we have cartoons that I found on the internet here of look at the Simpsons. Simpsons have allegedly all taken MXE. So if you see these packets, and parents, you're not going to know what a lot of these things stand for. They're just going to be packets with letters or numbers or something odd on the front of them. Google will tell you a lot. And if you put something in a search engine and then you type it in, push for the web, push for images, you can look up the things that your kids have and find out what's going on, what they're into. Cloudnine or Mojo and other teen drug abuse trends parents need to know about. Cloudnine is one of those. It's a bath salt. It also comes in little bottles like this with in liquid form. This was actually on the news a couple of months ago here in Detroit, that it was in our area and that kids were using it. So, parents, if you find this, you're not probably going to know what this is. Is it like eye drops? Is it breath spray? I mean, what is it in this little bottle? So please be very aware of these kind of things, or the packets that you would see in your kids' backpacks or wherever you might find it. Here's another one, Dragonfly. It's a psychedelic drug. It's slightly more powerful than LSD. The effects may last up to 6 hours. It may take 6 hours to take effect. The effects can sometimes last up to 6 days. And it's sold on, these are little blotter papers that then are put in your mouth. So again, if you see little blotter papers that look like stamps or that your child has something like this, you probably want to look further into that to see what they might be doing with that. Also, some of our cold and cough medicines, such as Robitussin, can be used for something called Robotripping. Triple C's, see if you look at the Coracetin package, they have 3 C's on them, so it's triple C's. Or Skittles, Candies, Red Devils, or DXM. Triple C stands for Coracetin, cold, and cough. So when these things are taken in large amounts, they can act like a psychedelic or hallucinogenic type drug, but can be extremely dangerous. An example of this is back in 2011, on Valentine's Day, this young man murdered his roommate. He had met a man. He was 19 years old. He met a man allegedly in a bar or a social setting somewhere. And this kid had allegedly ran away. And so he went home with this gentleman, lived with him for a couple of weeks. And I actually heard the 911 recording myself, where he called and was telling the operator that I think I just killed my roommate. And it was very disturbing because the young man had come out of his high that he was on and was sitting on the edge of the bed with this man that he had been living with for the last 3 weeks. But some of the things that he had done to the man, he had shot him 3 times. He had axed his face. He had carved words on his body and wrote on the victim with an ink pen. And when they asked him about the weapons that he was using, he said that he had a gun in his hand and that there was actually an axe that was sticking out of the man's stomach. So you can see that this young boy, 19 years old, from these medications that he misused, went into a murderous rage. So these are nothing to play with. They're extremely, extremely serious. And so don't let anyone talk you into doing any of these or taking any of these. The last one that I want to mention is something called lemon drop. And again, this is kind of something new as well. It's a homemade hallucinogenic drug. So you take some kind of medication like Vicks Formula 44, Secret, some of the things that I just mentioned, and it's mixed with other over-the-counter drugs and paint solvents to make these little drops that look like lemon drops, or they'll use lemonade or lemon juice or something, and they're hallucinogenic drugs. And again, it's very, very dangerous. And it's so unfortunate that none of what I'm saying is a secret or hid. It's out there. It's all on the internet. These kids, all they have to do is type something in about how to make it or where to get it, and so much will come up on the internet. You know, the internet is such a blessing in some ways that it's just a wealth of information, but it also can be so damaging when it's used in an improper way, and kids are looking up information and getting in trouble with it. So as I said, this was part 5 of a series of talks that I have done called Trends, Friends, and Fatal Ends. And some may ask me, weren't you concerned about going on air and talking about some of these things? Yes, naturally I was. However, I think you as a parent must be informed of what's going on with your kids and what to look for. Please be an active parent in your teen's life. And in your family's life, and make sure you know their friends. Make sure that you're aware of where your kids are going, who they're with, what kind of things they're into, the things that are in their backpack. Be a good parent. Be aware. Be educated about the trends, the friends, and the fatal ends that can occur with some of these behaviors, and talk to your kids. Communicate with them, express concern for them and love for them, and educate them about the dangers of things that youth and adolescents are drawn to and can be involved in. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience as we have worked through these 5 different sessions. And until next time, live well.